Right, never a dull moment in this country. Dr. KuruAukot opposes the inclusion of all the other candidates into the ballot. This is Afro Politico. I'm James Smart.
I'm Marvin Tumbo.
All right, and welcome to Afro Political, the Kenya edition. This is two guys, two mics, two drinks at our local at Jay's Bar in Westlands. Karibu sana.
Welcome.
All right, guys, as usual, we start with the comments, what you're talking to us and what you're telling us on Facebook. We value all your thoughts on Twitter, on Facebook. Let's
Very much.
get it off. Samuel Mwangi says, the set is so unique. Could those guys kindly consider blurring the background and perhaps consider lapels to make it less busy? Well, thank you very much. We are actually in a live environment at Jay's Bar. You can actually come and we would have fun. So this all is live. We cannot blur it any further because we love it and we like it. And as well, we're using these microphones, the condenser microphones, opposed to the lapels, so that we just want a bit of background, the live scenario around, because we're real. And we don't like studios. We hate studios.
It's been in studios for too much.
I love it. I mean, it's
a bit much.
This is different. So, yeah, we'll keep at it, but thank you very much for your comment. Hope the background and all the activities, everyone passing around on the back,
it's real.
are not distracting you so much. Tim Njiru Muridi says, what will happen once Dr. KuruAukot is allowed to run the repeat elections? What then for Raila Odinga?
First of all, I'm not sure NASA supporters will be happy with that because it kills the entire game plan that they had to try and delegitimize the process.
Right.
Because once you have a candidate, it makes the process legitimate.
I'm still going.
Yes, it makes the entire premise of the withdrawal was to try and delegitimize the elections. Because if you have one candidate, even if it's announced by ABC before the elections, you can be able to cry wolf. But now if you have a candidate and the elections go on, there's nothing much you can be able to fall back on.
Right. So legally, my understanding of what Raila Odinga was trying to trigger at 290 was this, that him and Uhuru Kenyatta were the only ones who were gazetted.
Yes.
Now, once he withdrew, coming from the 2013 Supreme Court decision, the idea was that would trigger fresh nomination for candidates. Well, that has sort of been overtaken by events. The very next day, when Dr. KuruAukot was included into the ballot. So I think two things have happened here that we cannot put them in one question. There was the withdrawal, which was supposed to achieve something. And then there was something happened the next day.
The withdrawal was to preempt the passing of the laws within Parliament.
Yes.
Number one, which was happening the next day as well. And,
which passed.
Yes, which passed. And they wanted
surprise.
And they wanted because the laws cannot be applied retroactively. So they wanted by the time the laws are passed, you have already set the precedents, and you cannot have the laws apply backwards. But also that meant they could not wait for the ruling.
For Dr. KuruAukot. Raila Odinga and NASA supported Dr. KuruAukot in court. Jubilee and IBC opposed it.
But NASA also are not too happy now that Aukot has been included.
Yes, so I agree. I mean, so perhaps from where I would look at it, is like maybe their support in court was academic.
It was.
But practically in political terms, it, of course, throws a curveball and introduces another variant that they were not too happy, or they're not too happy to,
No,
to
they were hoping. And also you'll find the same case also with Jubilee. There are certain things which you make certain calculations, hoping that certain decisions would go your way.
Are constant.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if once they shift, and we've had too many variables this time around, where you cannot even say you don't know. Which is why I was worried, even when you're discussing last time. My worry is right now you cannot even presume to understand what will happen next, because the variables are too many and they affect too many things.
All right, let's stay with the comments. Isma Abu, let's call a spade, guys. The brutality that was meted on students by the police was completely unwarranted. There was no justification for it whatsoever. The police are the tools of the sitting government to stifle dissent in its paranoid frenzy to hold on to power.
I've seen cars broken. I've seen looting. I've seen stones being thrown, tires being burnt on roads, which actually destroy roads. At the end of the day, the mandate of the police is protect lives and property. And I think in as much as you can talk about them having gone above and beyond the call of duty, they have to do their jobs.
The police are supposed to do the two things. One is to provide security to the protesters.
Yes.
All right. Secondly, is to make sure that they provide security to everyone else.
Yes.
All right. That's the job of the police.
But now also they are protecting themselves against the protesters.
No. That's the job of the police. So the disconnect I find is this, that we are criminalizing an entire group, an entire right. We are happy to say protests or demonstrations are violent. We are saying demonstrations is staggering. We are saying no, and they're not. They're not. So let's start from where we should. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, after fighting for inclusion, all right, into the ballot, where he was excluded.
For the exclusion of others.
Yes, where he was excluded by IEBC. Now he's fighting for the exclusion of others. But so Justice Mativo, the earth-shaking ruling this week was that Justice Mativo, in his reading of the law and his reading of the 2013 decision, says that the KuruAukot should be on the ballot. And this is for the fact that he's asking to be on that ballot, so it's important he be on that ballot. So he grants his wish. What IBC does later is IBC goes and includes everyone else. Why would they do that?
If you say you include everyone, now you bring also something else on the table where Jirongo has been declared bankrupt, and that's another process altogether.
So why would IBC do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
This is what I've said consistently. That I don't know who we hired at IBC. There is a constant, consistent effort by individuals at IBC to make sure that we do not have an election. I have finally come to that conclusion. They don't want us to have this election.
Do you think it's by omission or commission?
Both. They omit some things, like sometimes they omit their forms, sometimes they commit them. No. The problem is this. Someone is going to move to court. And I think KuruAukot is going to move to court. All right?
They said he is.
Yeah. And as surely, but why would IBC read the law also wrongly? Why would they do it deliberately?
Okay, fair enough. But also, does that tell you what kind of funny space we have, even with our courts, in that you find someone like Aukot, yeah? Dr. Aukot he wanted to be included. So I guess he spoke for himself.
Yeah.
But he said also the others should have spoken for themselves, because now he doesn't want, and I understand the play here. What's that play? He thinks in a scenario like this where people are tired about politics, if he's the only candidate, it means the choice is quite clear. And he's trying to play to certain emotions.
It could just be the wild card that you don't want.
Exactly. He wants to be a wild card, and which is why he's fighting for the exclusion of others.
What was difficult for IBC to go to the same court and say, all right, would it be okay if we include everyone else? And the court pronounce itself. Why wouldn't they do that?
I don't know.
Thank you very much. IBC is just IBC. I don't know who we hired. Let's talk about this earth-shattering decision then, right, that came up before another earth-shattering decision. So we have about three things. The KuruAukot, Judge Mativo, is saying, well, part of the problem of excluding everyone else and reading the question of fresh election as to mean only it's Raila, Odinga, and Uhuru Kenyatta is that it misses the point of what the Supreme Court had ordered. The Supreme Court had ordered for a fresh presidential election. Which,
not a rerun.
Yes, not a rerun. Why would IBC do that?
I think they acted and they interpreted the 2013 ruling, which by the Supreme Court, which is what also the Justice Mativo said, look, you cannot rely on the 2013 Supreme Court ruling because it's not binding. So that was their interpretation, because, again, that's the precedence that is there. And they said, okay, given we had that particular aspect defined in 2013 ruling, let's go with the two leading candidates. But now you have a situation where, and even NASA is arguing that 2013 was not binding to Aukot's case, and then. Which is funny also, it's the same ruling as well where you find 2013 is what they've used to withdraw. So I don't know. We just have too much legalese going on.
IBC moved too quickly. Immediately after the Supreme Court had annulled the elections, my view is they moved too quickly even before understanding the implication of what that meant. And I understand the push and pull then, because this would take you back to when Wafula Chebukati was sending memos to Ezra Chiloba. When Ezra Chiloba was saying, guys, you did a fantastic job, do not worry about the Supreme Court. And Wafula Chebukati was saying, hang on, guys, this is terrible, we'll be indicted, let's wait for the Supreme Court.
People expect things to be expedited. People want this thing to be over. So they might be victims of that in terms of saying, look, we need to move as fast as we can because they only have 60 days. The public also expects to see movement. I've seen they've just gazetted also the returning officers for the entire 290 constituencies. I don't know what that means in terms of the withdrawals.
This is a good segue for the withdrawal that Raila Odinga did.
Yes.
On this week. And his withdrawal is candidature from 26th election, October 26th election. Now, the problem is this, that if IBC moves even another date to 27th or 28th, even November the 1st, because that's the last day they're still within 60 days, they must include Raila Odinga on the ballot. All right? Because he's withdrawn from the 26th. All right? Let's be very clear.
Are you serious?
Yes. He's withdrawn from the 26th. If you move it a single day, we enter another territory altogether. All right? This is a football pitch with like 7 goalposts.
7 goalposts and 14 referees and
everyone is scoring in their own goalposts.
And 3 FIFAs.
Yes. So where do we move from here? Because
I don't know, which is why you're saying, and again, you've seen also lawyers who are a bit balanced talking about political solution. And what also, it's something you argued for last week.
Yeah.
Actually, earlier this week, political solutions where you have the two candidates sit down, but also you're finding a situation where these are also preempted. Yeah, this was preempted. Where if you know you're losing, yeah, the best you can do is make sure no one wins. Yeah, and that scenario is where now you would be more comfortable because you're holding everybody hostage. You're the guy with the gun to the head like this, yeah, and you're saying, you know what, either we talk or I shoot the puppy.
The law is very clear, Marvin. The law
It's not
is
clear. It's not.
All lawyers have been saying the
where-
law is very clear. Yeah. If you read this chapter together with another one,
You tell me.
it's very clear. It
James,
is not.
James, you tell me. Where is the clarity in all of this?
There's no clarity. We are all in a smog and we're just moving around just like trying to find whatever. The thing is this, that politically, what Raila Odinga's withdrawal means, the boycott, on 26th, if it goes ahead and happens, is that his base and his supporters will not show up.
Yeah.
All right? That's a political problem. I still think that legally, you can still go ahead in that election.
You can.
You know, and bring the ballot boxes to 290 constituencies, 40,883 polling stations, and people who show up who don't, they can still vote. Those who don't, people will be there the whole day, then take back 0 results. I still think that is legally feasible because voting in this country is not mandatory. All right, so you're not compelled to vote. But the problem is this, that once you cross that line,
Legitimacy.
yes, you've entered the legitimacy problem. And I think this is where I argued in the first place. I said, what we're having is not a legal problem, we have a political problem.
It's been created through lack of specificity in terms of the legal pronouncements that
Marvin,
are creating.
I don't think you can fix this, our electoral laws and our constitution with ordinary laws like you're trying to fix with the ones in parliament. We'll discuss this maybe a few weeks from now when courts will start throwing them out. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think.
But now also look at a situation where we are back to 2007, where
Even worse, even before.
or to be honest, this is actually worse because you find there are guys who want to have a president, and the fear in terms of such a conversation, when talk about a political problem, the fear is that you're seeing someone who's saying, okay, when you talk about political conversation, are we now talking about Nusumkate government? That's the biggest problem. Because when you talk about, is this a negotiated democracy?
Why is the idea of including someone else in government such a repugnant thing? Because I've never understood that.
Because
why is it?
At the very essence of democracy, is you have your way, I have my say, or vice versa. Based on the numbers, based on the policies you sell on the ground. But it cannot be that if I don't have my way,
No, I don't think that's what it is. You're not answering the question.
The issue, and I think that most people are having a problem with this, where it's much easier for us to cast the ballot and say, okay, whoever wins runs the country for the next 5 years. But now, when a situation is created, and let's be clear about this is a manufactured situation. When a situation is created where you cannot have an election, and as a result, you want to have a sit down and negotiate.
See first. No, I think you cut it halfway first. I mean, this problem started with IEBC and the creation of an election and the process that was deemed by the Constitution and the Supreme Court not to be a valid process.
Okay, fair enough.
So it starts from way back. So I think the problem that, like I said, the problem we have is this, that not just just the running of government. The problem we have is the social contract, the agreement of how we as a people, we as a country live together.
What's the social contract?
That's the question, because if on 26, and this is my word, if on 26 you push ahead and go ahead with a sort of an election that, yes, feasibly, legally works, all right, and parts of this country go actually and vote, and parts of this country actually don't, all right, you've created the biggest sales pitch for a divided country.
It depends then on what the winner decides to do with that win, Because at the end of the day, the most pressing thing now...
Can I suggest to you?
Yes.
Can I suggest to you that the problem that Jubilee has had in last 4.5 years, after the Supreme Court ruling of 2013, was the fact that the other half of the country that did not vote for them, they didn't feel that they were included in their government.
That's a lie.
Marvin.
Do you know why it's a lie? Because following that decision, those might be emotional feelings, but in reality, the reason you've seen even such movements towards Jubilee, such defections of key figures from across the country, even those areas...
We saw the defections. No, let's do the numbers.
No.
We saw the defections after 2013.
No, even based on the number of MPs who are elected in areas that are traditionally opposition areas, it tells you that a lot happened in terms of bridging the divide, the perceived divide that followed the 2013 elections. A lot. There was a lot. A hand was extended, which is why you have votes in Kisii, you have votes in Nyamira, you have MPs in Western. So right now, which is what I'm saying, even if an election goes on, what happens is the president and the deputy president will say, despite this happening, despite guys not voting in 1, 2, 3, 4 areas, this is how we intend to extend a hand of friendship to those areas. And bring guys on board.
Hand of friendship when people are thinking about the country that they want to live in. And I say the question of social contract is what we actually sign up to, because the question of social contract starts when the first ballot is actually cast. All right? Now, and the agreement is the equal playing field. You know, I'm going with it. So it's a question of how we've agreed on how we'll always play this game. Now, we cannot agree on those rules. There is Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who are the principal beneficiaries of this election. All right? However much we like to cloud it, okay, it's President Uhuru Kenyatta, and it could be President Raila Odinga, right? Not Presidents Uhuru Kenyatta and President Raila Odinga, right? Now, these two individuals, why is it so difficult and why is it so hard for these two individuals at the center of it all to sit down and talk without us telling us what is the nature and what is the constant, what is the desired result of those talks?
No,
they are Kenyans just like me and you are talking. Why can't they do that?
But there has to be an outcome.
Yes.
Of that.
The outcome is
What's the outcome?
We need to sort out a political problem.
Yes.
Okay. Let them
Now,
sit down and discuss.
That doesn't
among
mean we
themselves.
cannot preempt what the outcome is,
But
or discuss what the
unless-
possible shapes and forms it might take.
unless you're saying that Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga don't have their own heads, that they're
No, of
controlled
course
by
they
everyone
do.
else.
Of course they do. But
And-
what I'm
and
saying
they
is
don't have
this.
their own opinions.
What I'm saying is this: at the end of the day, if they're going to have a conversation, we must also have a conversation about their conversation. In that,
And then we disagree about their conversation.
no, if they are going to meet, yeah, what are the possible outcomes?
Well,
Yeah.
one first and foremost is this country needs to move on. First
That's
and
number
foremost,
one.
that is
Yes.
very important. All right. Secondly, so now that we know that we're
How does it move on?
exactly now they need to agree, tell us how the country moves on. Okay, can we have an election between now and November the 1st? What problems do you have as Uhuru Kenyatta with this election not happening after November the 1st? What problems as Raila Odinga do you have with these elections happening on 26th? You see, these are things that the two of them, once they discuss, I can promise you we can move back to that parliament, and change anything that we need to change, okay, so that we can legitimize and start moving the whole country together as one.
The core of it is that empirically the numbers are not there. And this is just being used as a way to try and negotiate some sort of deal. And I'm not sure whether, as a country, yeah, as a democracy especially, we want to make deals where we say, look, because at the end of the day, we need to have an opposition as well. It's part of democracy.
All right. I see it differently, as always. I think that the question is a question of exclusion or inclusion in this country. I think that conversation is a political conversation, it's a political discussion, all right? And I also think that our constitution can always be revisited, all right? When we as a people agree,
I think it should be.
we agree as a people that there are certain things that theoretically thought were worked perfectly and should have worked, but what they've done is
Practically,
maybe
yeah.
tore us apart and make it difficult for us to come to consensus once we have political problems.
Fair enough.
And I think we should have that discussion. I don't think we should be ashamed or be alarmed by it.
Okay, let's see where it goes. But as I said as well, we as also voters, we have a role in this.
Let's discuss NASA protests. All right, Marvin's favorite subject.
Oh God, no.
Right. So, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission came out earlier on in the week, gave a number of 30 plus people who had been killed throughout this electoral process between August up to date. The NASA protests have now been happening from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They are saying from this coming week, it's every day of the week, Monday to Friday. There have been questions of looting, questions of thuggery and theft, vandalizing, personal property, vehicles, and that sort of thing. And there was a small problem of the Nairobi business community, and that sort of thing. So, in all this mess, all this put together, where do we go?
Clearly, the protests are being utilized as an avenue for looting and vandalizing of property, and as a result.
And you don't think there are people who are genuinely upset by the election, that they just want to go out and show and demonstrate?
These are
how
mobilized
they're upset.
protesters.
Whether they're mobilized or not.
Actively mobilized with criminal elements in them, who are using the mob justice to try and steal, loot, make a quick buck here and there. And at the end of the day, also, what's the lesser of two evils? Hold your protest peacefully, or you don't, because at the end of the day, if your rights encroach on mine.
You see, the responsibility of security is not on protesters. Ever, it's never been. In any world, it's never been. All right? Our constitution, again, is very clear, Marvin. Our laws are very clear.
Yeah.
on what...
Can you say that with a straight face?
Yes, on the rights of peaceably assembling and demonstrating, all right? It's peaceably, all right. Now, it does not say you are the ones in charge of security. That's what I was writing out. So, if there's a breakdown of security, all right, and this is what you are running away from, okay? that they are vandalizing. I've seen videos of people, stealing things. That is the work of the police. Let me say this. As of today, as we're talking, there is not even one person who's recorded a statement to the police. So as far as you are concerned,
there's not one person.
As far as you're concerned,
have you checked the OBs across the board?
Yes. Yesterday, the CS Matiang'i called for the public, anyone who has been, you've been vandalized or whatever, please go and report to the police that the government can start taking legal action.
Yes.
All right? They have no one person.
No, he didn't say no one. He just said you have to go. Because at the end of the day, you can't come here and say that all the records that have been, all the OBs in all the police stations.
If there would have been one person who had go to the police, someone should have been arrested. There should have been a court process. All right? We have a very clear criminal justice system, Marvin. Okay, we cannot hide. The ODPP, the Office of the Prosecution, should have been by now told us that, you know what, we have received several files, okay, from the police, and you're directing to the CID for further investigations and whatever. So we can't. As far as we are concerned, not one person.
As far as you are concerned.
Public. As far as the public is concerned, not one person.
I've seen guys, even on my own timeline online, I've seen guys saying their cars have been vandalized, and
I've seen pictures too.
Yes, there are videos, there are pictures. So at the end of the day, it doesn't make them less of a victim.
I didn't say they're less of a victim. No, that's what I said. I said, Marvin, let's isolate the problems, all right? A car has been vandalized, all right? A car has been vandalized. I report to the police, all right? The police kick an investigation, okay? We have cameras in the entire CBD. We can pick out the person, okay, who threw a stone, who stole the phones and all those things. We can do all those things.
And then next week we'll be here discussing about their rights.
No. Those people, yes. They must be arrested. They must be taken to court. They should not be shot. They should not be killed. That is what we're saying. I don't see why that is such an alien idea.
You cannot. I'm not saying it's alien, and I'm not disagreeing with it necessarily. But what I'm saying also is that at the end of the day, if someone's car has been vandalized, if someone's shop has been broken into, people have stolen things, you can't have a situation where you say just because in your assumption that they are not victims. They are victims, and at the end of the day, these protests are providing the cover for their victimhood.
All right. In other news, Liberia has happened. All right. George Weah taking the lead, votes still coming in, but my God, who would have thought the footballer would score an onside goal this time around? Who would have thought?
Not on goal.
No, this is not on goal. He scored, he's a striker. He's on it. But it all appears that it's going to be another run because he's not gotten the required threshold. So there could possibly be another run. But the vote's still counting. This is all speculative. Yeah. But the vote's still coming on. But good for him. And good for Liberia.
Good for him. And I'm happy to see such happening in African politics. I think it's interesting. It's a next outsider from traditional politicians. Save for Bobby Wine. So you have musicians, Jaguar here. I think it's an interesting concept where you have people from traditionally, what do you call them? Arts, traditional, not from the traditional vocations, being able to play a part in politics. And maybe, let's see what happens. Hopefully his craftsmanship on the field applies also in government. I don't know.
I think that's a beautiful thing. Good on Weah, good on Liberians. We are going to keep at it. Let's see what happens there. Hopefully they have another elections. I think it's in a month or so.
Yeah.
Between him and I think the former vice president who's coming number 2. Just across the border. In Somalia, the Army Chief and Defense Minister has resigned following terror attacks. In Somalia, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing this up for something. Because in Kenya, no one takes responsibility. It is the other person, it is the PS, it is the directors, it is everyone else except the minister.
There's my community.
Yes. Or my community is being attacked. It's everyone else. We had a terror attack here, all right, that killed so many people, not once, not twice. No one resigned. It was like, you know what, there was a failure of everyone else, including the media, for showing pictures.
Good for Somalia. You have a new president who has had, I think, quite a bit of history across the world, and having come in, his election was a surprise, a good one,
Yeah.
and what's his name, Formaggio. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that.
It looks like he has a good grip on what should happen in Somalia. He just
he
I don't know
does.
so much about him, but
No, he does. He has a good grip, and I think even his approach to government, you'll see his thinking and what he wants to do. There's a bit of clarity
all right.
in terms of thought and process, and maybe we see we hope for the best, because if Somalia is good, we know we are good. Because if he's able to clean up
The
Al
northward.
Shabaab there,
Yeah.
we'll
All right.
be happy here as well.
Let's from north to south. And the South African Supreme Court, having been inspired by the Supreme Court somewhere else, have handed today another momentous decision. Don't fight it. They have overturned about 800 cases of graft that were standing on the way, that now, which pave the way for Jacob Zuma to be actually prosecuted.
Zuma.
Yeah, Jacob Zuma to be prosecuted. So, where does that take us? I mean, Zuma has always been Zuma.
I think he's had. There are a number of things that are happening. You'll see the case with this British company that has been
The PR company?
The PR company, yeah. They've been in. It's been a mess. KPMG is in a mess in South Africa in terms of who's paying for what.
They've always been.
How are the auditing being paid for, or basically the processes that have been used they have been weaponized, yeah, to attack certain areas or to protect certain areas, and I think it's a growing thing, because you're seeing the leading family there who control a lot of politics also have been under siege for a minute now.
Yeah.
And these, I think all of these, it's a groundswell of sorts that is happening, and you'll find that the same thing you can talk even when you talk about the states. There are certain conversations that start happening in very multiple places, but over time you find there's a bit of confidence as people come out, as people start to, even institutions have to reflect a certain will.
All right, and just still in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, Comrade Bob decided to do a reshuffle this week.
Oh, good God.
And create another ministry for threat detention and, things like this. But essentially just downgrading the people who someone would have thought, looking outside, that these are the people who traditionally would have sort of inherited and succeeded him.
There are a number of questions you can ask, and clearly you'll see the wife's hand in this. She would want to succeed the president, but how she succeeds him is a problem. So a big part of it has been eliminating the biggest threats.
Right.
The former Vice President Joyce Mujuru was fired from office, was removed from the ZANU PF, and basically just kicked out of the party and government in one swoop. Following that, the next person in line who to be president was Justice Mnangagwa. He was a justice minister, the most formidable politician, I think, next to Bob himself. Yeah. And now he's been also fired as the justice minister. They've appointed someone else, and he's retained his position as vice president, but is
it's a weak position.
It's a very, very weak position, and you can see where it's going. And funny enough is that the former Vice President Joyce Mujuru advised Mnangagwa just a week before he was fired as a justice minister to resign, because she knows what's coming.
And just across the field, Trump and the U.S. withdraw from UNESCO. Not much a lot there. I mean, I think the U.S. should withdraw from everything. I mean, withdrawing in this time and period has been very dangerous. Biologically, it's supposed to be one of the safest things to do, but Withdrawing is not. I mean, we've seen Catalonia, we've seen it in the US, and then
Brexit.
in Kenya, then Brexit. Withdrawing is not a very good option.
I think what you'll see, you're seeing a president who's going to put China is moving forward in terms of, first of all, they'll probably in the next few years pass the US as the largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, with a president such as Trump, you find their play in the world. Because if you start withdrawing from such entities, there was talk also about NATO and not being able to give money to NATO. All of these will weaken what has been seen as a global superpower. Yeah, and over time, I think it will take such a long time to try and establish themselves in such a position, because I think they're just one of the few, and I'm not sure what informs this, because the reasons for me are a bit juvenile.
All right, Trump, continue giving us news. This is Afro Political. Thank you very much for your company. Love to hear what you thought. Love to hear your thoughts again. Please tweet us, send us some Facebook messages. We'll respond, we'll react. From the reasonable one to the emotional one. I'm James Smart. This is Afro Political.
I'm Marvin Tumbo. That's the first time I've been accused to be the emotional one.
See, he's catching feelings already.
I'm a statistician. I'm just counting.
The numbers will be called emotional.
Yeah.
This is the second time.
See, I didn't even notice.